And he was like, so that's great that you read Quimby. Did you actually read the material that I provided? And I was like,
okay. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a video all about just information for new law students, incoming 1Ls, maybe even some info for 2Ls, 3Ls, depending on how your journey has been. Also just want to give some tips for first generation law students. Everyone on the panel is a first generation law student. We do have Kristen from USC, Richard from Georgetown. He used to go to FAMU, if you guys remember him from my videos, so he'll talk about transferring. We have Sukhmeen, she goes to UCLA with me, and she's going to share like public interest related topics. And then we have Leia. Leia's been on my channel before in a few other videos, and she's still at NYU. And then of course me, I'll offer some information here and there. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully the video is really helpful, really informational. I know it is a longer video, but every time I try to like cut too much out of these videos, I feel like you guys miss a lot. So hopefully you enjoy it. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the video. So Sukhmeen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Sukhmeen. I'm currently a 2L at UCLA, and I'm originally from Sacramento.
Kristen.
hi everyone, I'm Kristen. I'm a 2L at USC, and I'm originally from the Bay Area.
Richard.
Hey y'all, my name is Richard. I go to Georgetown Law. I'm originally from Miami, Florida.
Hi, I'm Leia. I'm originally from Atlanta, and I'm going to NYU. I'm a 2L.
Okay. So thank you all for joining. We're going to talk about a few different things today, but overall, just how your 1L experience was, any advice you have, anything to do, not to do, what career paths you guys are pursuing, things like that. So I guess the first question to start off, we're just going to keep it very general. What's the, I guess, like the piece of advice that you received before law school started that really helped you the most, do you think? And we'll go in the same order for the question. So
I would say for me, less related to academics, more related to just mental health and just general like way of thinking, because I didn't have I don't really have any attorneys in the family. Really, it's just one of my cousins who went to law school told me really just focus on your own journey and don't really look too much towards others, because I think like law school, you hear a lot that it's very competitive, which, it is, but there's definitely this culture of, that's perpetuated of kind of looking at what everyone else is doing. And I think getting the advice to just kind of silence that out and just focus on yourself, because everyone's journey is really different. I think that helped me a lot in terms of just like maintaining my mental health and not really, falling into imposter syndrome and all that. So I would say that was a good piece of advice that I got.
Yeah, I didn't get that piece of advice, but I feel like that's so important that I'm going to go ahead and go with that. It's something that I didn't do. I was really comparing myself to others. I lived in a building in downtown that had a lot of other law students in it, and it was really hard not to kind of compare like where you were with other people or how other people were doing compared to your own work. And I thought that by the end of the first semester, I was just going crazy because it seemed like everyone was doing so well and I was doing so poorly, but it wasn't the case. So I think just really focusing on yourself and making sure that you're learning the material and then trying to block out all the other opinions as best as you can is just so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. For myself, the best advice I got going into my 1L year was really, it stuck out because I'm also first gen, and it was 1 year sprint, 2 year marathon in regards to how I saw my trajectory and what I needed to get done. So in regards to like locking in to be specific, diving in, heading the books, really that first year being probably the most crucial when folks were giving me advice in regards to employment, in regards to, setting up for the bar, the foundational skills of the legal education come in that first year for the most part. Not that the last 2 years of law school aren't important. It's just that first year, if you can make it through, you can kind of gather that foundation to really be successful for those next 2 years and pushing through. Most people, if they ever do fall off, it's in that first year. So being able to see through that first year, setting yourself up for success, for a strong, having a strong transcript for that 2L summer, et cetera, was, important to me to know, like, if I can make it through this first year, I'll be all right.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 1L is just distinctively terrible, and it feels like it's going to be that way forever. But once you're done with it and you sort of look forward, it's a lot of work left. But as for like your career, unless you want to clerk or do something very specific, you pretty much have it sorted out before you start your 2L year. So really nailing down 1L, like if you can just do that, like you're going to make it. Like there's nothing worse can possibly happen to you. But the piece of advice I received, it's not law specific, but it's been so helpful my entire life, is to find the person who has like your dream career or your dream lifestyle and then work backwards from there. Lawyers love to talk about themselves. They're so willing to talk to you. I've never reached out to someone where they didn't get back to me and want to meet for coffee or have a conversation or FaceTime or something and let me know about how they got to their position. And it has ultimately been one of the most helpful networking tools, making decisions for 2L summer, making decisions for like my long-term career. It's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best advice I received was just worry about yourself. Literally, it was just worry about yourself. And I feel like I didn't do that and I should have. So I would tell all 1Ls to do that for sure. So I guess the next question is, did you guys read any books or take like pre-law classes or anything like that before? I know I did. I didn't read any books, but I took like a free thing with DAP, which is like a free boot camp, like a weekend boot camp. And I don't know if it wasn't not helpful, but I don't know if I would say it was necessary. So I don't know. Do you guys have any recommendations or anything you did?
For me, I didn't read any books. I know there were a few recommendations, like Getting to Maybe is one that a lot of people recommended. But I did take a class, like it was a class that was just once, I think every couple weeks. It wasn't like I said, another academic thing. It was, it's from Movement Law Lab. They do a movement lawyering course. I think they do it every year, and it was right before 1L started, and I thought it was perfect because I'm a public interest student, and I'm really interested in finding ways to work within the community, and I think that course helped a lot with figuring out what movement lawyering is. I didn't really know the term before that, so I think it provided a lot of perspective on like the type of work I wanted to do once I started law school, so it was helpful.
I didn't read any books. I did a self-paced class. I think it was called like 0L preparatory class. It was offered through Harvard, but USC partnered with them for it. And I think a bunch of other schools do it too. So I would definitely just check in with like your school to see if they do it. And I like that it was self-paced. It taught you how to read a case, and it taught you some fundamentals of the judicial system and certain like basic legal terms. I will say, as a political science student, it wasn't very helpful. It was kind of redundant, but I think it was a good way to, while I had that free time over the summer, make sure that I was doing something to prepare. So it just gave me a little peace of mind.
Yeah, I didn't take any classes or read any books, but because going back to the first question, some advice I got was take advantage of that free time you have when you don't need to read. But I also did the 0L with Harvard because my school, my 1L school, FAMU, offered it, and I thought it was very helpful. I was already politically inclined, and my career was around that and policy, so I understood what I was reading, but it was a good refresher and a good warm-up, I think, to get your feet wet before, instead of immersing yourself directly in school and get thrown in. So I thought that 0L was pretty, legit. And for anyone who wasn't inclined, where they didn't understand the infrastructure and the system of how the government operates, I thought that was good as well. So
I didn't read a book over the summer because I didn't think it would be helpful for me. I had like a little bit of like an industry background, so I wasn't super concerned. But one thing I read before I took my exams that I found was really helpful was like an IRAC class. I did just Quimby's. Like if you have Quimby, it's free already. But if you have Barbary, I think Barbary also has one. Made a game changer on how I like wrote my exam answers. We did a mock exam, and the first one I did badly on. The actual one I did much better on. The content I wrote, like the actual knowledge, was exactly the same. It's just how I wrote it was different, and it made a significant difference in my grades. Also a significant difference between my first semester and my second semester grades. So if you can find like an IRAC course, I just use the Quimby one. I don't think it's helpful over the summer before you've started reading. It's definitely helpful before you take your first exam.
Okay. So with that, I want to skip some questions. So what do you guys think was your best class and your worst class? And then why? Like, what do you think was the difference between those two grades? Or, yeah.
Well, I'll start because this semester I got my best grade ever. I got an A in international law, which was actually my least favorite and the most terrible class. I had to take it. I'm a scholarship student. I had to take it for my scholarship. It was mostly because I had a notoriously problematic professor. He's the professor where I have an advisor for my scholarship, and I was like, I'm taking international law with Alvaro. She's like, really? I was like, oh no. Like his coworkers are like, do not take that class. But it was my best grade ever. I got a flat A. And the difference really was just how I studied. I had a really aggressive study group for that class that really got into the minutia of things, was a very different way of studying that I did not study for my other classes, and I will be taking from now on. It was 100% the way I studied. The way I read was exactly the same. The way I answered questions in class, the way I did everything exactly the same. It was just the method of studying was completely different. And it was just really focused on dissecting each individual concept into every single component, memorizing those components and being able to execute them very quickly on the exam. Huge difference. My worst class was my first class. It was Civ Pro. Definitely had a rough sort of year. I ended up, are we supposed to say the grade, or are we just supposed to say we did bad?
Whatever your favorite.
Everyone knows my grades. I talk to. I got a B, which is what NYU curves to, but also is like not good, if that makes sense. I didn't know what I was doing. I actually talked to the professor afterwards. I was like, hey, what can I do better? Which I'll do that, by the way. Absolutely do that. It's so incredibly helpful. And he's like, your answers didn't make any sense. He's like, I read your paper and I didn't know what you were talking about, so I just gave you a B. I was like, okay. It absolutely had to do with like Iraq. I absolutely wrote in like a wacko way. Looking back at it, it was just train of thought. I was like, but if you actually look at it, my answers are right. He's like, but why would I read that? Like, he just like, I don't think he read it because it was written badly, and they could just do that. So recommend Iraq, like really recommend Iraq.
Okay. Sukhmeen, we'll go back the other way.
It was definitely property for me. I think it was mostly the subject was something I wasn't interested in, so I didn't feel like going as hard as I would for other classes, and so I think that affected it a lot. I mean, it's been so long since I didn't have any control over the classes I took. Like, it's been since high school, so I think that part of 1L was definitely difficult. And for those especially who want to go into public interest, it can be difficult because a lot of the classes that you're taking are very doctrinal and kind of outside of the field of public interest. So property was definitely one that I had difficulty with. I would say that. And then best class, I would say, was probably LRW, just because I liked that it was more of a writing course and not something where you had to, your whole grade relied on an exam at the end of the course. And in our LRW, for Lataysia and I, we had like several assignments. It wasn't just relying on one assignment. So I liked the pace of that class, and I also liked that there wasn't like kind of the traditional law school exam. So I would say that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like my whole first semester was like my bad grade, and then my second semester was the better grades. I just kind of same what has been said. Just the way I was studying was not right, and it wasn't right for me in particular. It was just really not compatible with what the exam would ultimately be asking for. And so over the holiday break, I kind of like sat down and reassessed what I was doing wrong. And then I took like an extra little class that they offer, and it's like a test prep class. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, because I came from a liberal arts undergrad where our finals were like an essay, and like long essays, but you had a while to work on them. And so a 3-hour issue spotter exam was totally new to me, and I got stressed out, and I think that inhibited like me from really performing well. But then also just having 3 hours, I didn't practice for that at all. And so taking this practice class, we did a practice test every week, and it was kind of grueling, but it worked out a lot better. So I think just it's really important to, it's kind of like trial and error. Trial and error. So you're gonna fail, or you're gonna do not as well as you like would ideally hope. And when that happens, just sit down, figure out what you did wrong, and learn from it. That's, I think, the only way to go in something that's so new.
Thanks. I agree. I had the opposite though. My first semester was the good, the second was the bad. I got a lot of anxiety because I didn't think I was gonna do that well right out the gate. And the things I learned right out the gate was, because I was so nervous, I anticipated not doing well. I did everything in my power to do well. So I sent, like, first week, I just did things off Quimby. I did the practice essays, sent them to each of my professors. Is this what you're looking for? And then they were like, oh, this is perfect. This would get an A on this. Okay, bet. Now I got the game plan of what I got to do, of a roadmap in the final. And I aced every single one of those classes because I already knew what to do. But then, that's because I got so confident in essays. I was introduced to multiple choice. I hadn't done that in so long. When Con Law hit me with multiple choice, I was like, she asked us as a class, would y'all prefer multiple choice or essay? And of course, one vote for essay was me. The whole class voted for multiple choice. And I'm sitting there.
Multiple choice is so bad. It's so bad.
I don't like multiple choice in law school like that, like everyone else does, only because I guess people like to gamble, where it's like, I can see you might be this versus that. But for me, I like to kitchen sink it, is what my professor says she tries to avoid, but I like to do that because then when I'm done, after I'm doing an essay, I go back because I usually have time to take things out. Where I'm like, I might be giving too much information. Hence why my best grade my second semester was contracts, because it was an essay, and I was able to do that because I'm able to spit that information. And just like was said earlier by Leah in regards to the IRAC, I learned that very quickly my first semester because I was able to trial and error essays over and over for the professors who told me this is not what they're looking for, which was torts. Although it was a grind, and seeing that red ink all over that paper really hurt my feelings a little bit at first. I thought I wasn't capable. After a while, I saw, okay, now I see what he's looking for. That's what got me that grade in that class. I applied that to contract as well. So that was the upside. The downfall was multiple choice.
Yeah, same. So torts was my worst grade because of multiple choice. My professor literally said that your essay was perfect. You literally got like 2 questions right on multiple choice. It was horrible. I did horrible. It was all bad. He was like, I don't know what happened. I'm like, I don't know. My best grade was definitely legal research and writing. And I think Sukhmeen and I were in the same class. It's exactly for the same reasons. Like, it's just a completely different thought process. And I think I was more used to just like writing in general, like writing those types of essays. So it just made more sense for me. But so I guess, Richard, I have a question for you though, just for you. So you transferred.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Like, what was the transfer process like? Obviously, you had to have good grades to transfer. Like, what went into that process?
Well, I mean, I went into law school in general. First, I didn't even think about practicing. I come from a politics background, and I played football. So I kind of wanted to prove myself. This is the first time I ever went to school not having to worry about anything else but school. So I wanted to lock in. So that's why I took in that mentality from the first question, 1 year sprint to your marathon. And I came in with a transfer offer already for a peer school. I think it was UF or something like that. So I came in knowing I could, no matter how well or poorly I did. But I set out a chart before school started. Like, if I fit in this GPA range, I'm eligible for, T14 range or top 5. And then everything else, anything under that, I just go to UF or I'll stay. So my first semester, like I mentioned, obviously I kind of hinted at it, I got straight A's. So I was like, okay, I'm top of my class. I'm up in that range. Now my school was unranked, and it's a HBCU. So I leveraged everything I got out of that to reallocate resources for the school because it's underfunded and it's under-resourced. So I tried to leverage my platform. I had an internship at Apple. I got it before I even had grades came out. I secured that internship in like November, and the one from NAACP October. So I was already set for my 1L summer before winter break. So what I did was, I would use that to bring more opportunities for the school. But long story short, after the spring, I still did well. Obviously, I still finished where I was. But I realized, the curriculum was the issue. So like we all know 1L, everyone has to take the same standard courses across the country. But when I saw what my schedule would look like, and I was still being forced to take certain classes at my school, and then I saw the curriculum at the schools I was getting accepted into, I kind of realized, I needed to broaden, because I love to learn and academically thinking and leaning that way. I was able to get every resource. I didn't need to leave. My school offered me a full ride to come back and stay when they found out I was exploring transferring. So I was pretty much set, and I had the extra scholarship I got from the Thurgood Marshall program that partnered with Apple. So I had, it wasn't a financial decision, because the loans I'm looking at right now definitely wasn't a financial decision. And I didn't need the T14 because I already secured a job offer before I even decided to transfer from a corporate job in New York from a firm. So I already had the big law thing, which I didn't need to do either. And I decided to leave because more so at being academically leaning, my schedule right now is night and day from what it would have been where I stayed, which is like being able to have the autonomy to choose from a vast curriculum. The curriculum and the course offerings at my school and peer schools of that sort, it's just night and day, and it's not the same. Now I'm still going to continue to advocate and help and fund the school, but for myself individually, to be able to choose from so many courses and have experiential learning and clinics and I didn't have before, it was an easy decision.
Okay, that makes sense. So we're going to go back to like studying tips, but I want to keep going with this. So Sukhmeen, you are pursuing public interest. So like, can you talk about that at UCLA and just in general? Because I feel like the classes you take and like the clinics you do, they're like completely different than some of the stuff I'm doing.
So the public interest program at UCLA, we have our own separate program. It's called PILP. And so I wasn't in it last year, but I did join this year. And so we have a seminar for that class. We have like our own kind of cohort of public interest students. So it's a great way to like build community with other public interest students. So that's really cool. And our class options are really cool as well. Like right now I'm taking immigration law. I'm taking evidence because I'm really interested in criminal defense. So that's a really important class for that. I'm in the public interest seminar, and what is the last class I'm taking? Sorry, I always forget my last class. Critical race theory. So we have a really good critical race theory program at UCLA as well. And this year, like, is completely different for me as a public interest student than 1L, because actually liking all of my classes and really enjoying the work is so important and really changed everything for me. So even just in the first week, I can tell I'm actually going to like doing my readings. Like I'm actually going to like participating in class. And I just know that I'm going to do way better because it's tough going through the doctrinal classes when you came to law school for like a certain goal and a certain reason. You want to learn certain things. So I would say getting through 1L and then starting 2L is completely different. And if you're a public interest student, I would say, just hang in there. It's going to be fine. And just build community with other students. That's the most important part for me, at least.
Yeah. And I know for the people that did do public interest their first year, I think there's like a class you take once a week from like 5 to 7 or 5:30 to 7:30, something like that. And then they do have like a lot of like just special events they did and stuff. So your 1L experience would be different if you want to do public interest compared to if you want to do like big law. At least everybody I know. I think it was like different experience, especially at UCLA. Even like for critical race theory, they have like a special class you take for that too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Even as a 1L. So yeah. So I guess, does everyone else want to talk about like what they did this summer and then what they'll be doing next summer if you already know? So Kristen.
Yeah, so this past summer I was at Apple. I was working in their trademark group, and that was super new to me. It wasn't something that I like had sought out in particular. It was just like I met someone at a networking event that was from Apple. She was in the employment group, and we really connected. And I learned that IP law was a thing. I'm a first-gen student too, and so everything about the law is kind of like you learn it as you see it coming at you. And so I went to this employment attorney and said, hey, like, I think I might be interested in IP. Like, do you know any IP attorneys? And she was like, I work at Apple. Of course I do. And so she like got me in contact with a bunch of people. And one of them was my boss in trademarks. And I was just really fascinated with the aspect of working with the creative side of a business and figuring out how to establish that brand protection. And so going into next summer, it's not finalized. I'm comparing a couple offers. It might be with working with startups. It might be with something more trademark focused. So, hopefully we'll figure that out not too much later. But yeah, definitely excited for that, whatever it may be.
So side note, I actually saw that you got an offer from one of the places I got an offer from. I saw your name on an email.
Wait, I'll have to text you about it.
Yeah, it's the startup one. So
okay, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, Richard, you mentioned you're working at a firm, but do you want to say what firm? Because
everyone hits me up about it now. I got a diversity fellowship and a summer offer from Kirkland and Ellis in New York, and I had a couple of the same diversity offers from other firms. So, and in this summer, I split my summer with NAACP doing voting rights and more litigation work. Unlike next summer, I'll be doing more transactional corporate work. But that's because of my interest and background in civil rights and advocacy. And I'm also I split my summer with Apple. In Apple, I did more government affairs work, lobbying. So that was interesting. So it was a 180 experience within one summer alone. And from what I'm doing next summer and in this fall, I'll be helping the National Bar Association as well, doing critical race theory work, lobbying on behalf of things like reparations and combating police brutality. So that's what I'm like to being now in DC, I'm able to navigate and do more things I'm interested in one now.
Okay, so I have a question for you following up with that. So did you get your offers for the diversity fellowships through OCI or did you apply earlier?
Oh no, that's why I mentioned everything I got off the strength was from FAMU. It definitely wasn't from Georgetown or any other school. I always wanted to say I got this from my HBCU to say that it's possible. So I did everything pre-OCI. That's why I tell everyone. I know people mainly know my face off of LinkedIn nowadays, but literally everything I did was pre-OCI, and I reached out to people individually. No one came to my school. That's something I have conversations I've had with my previous institution because I want more resources for students who are there, who are coming there, and peer schools of the sort. But I reached out to employers personally to either come to my school or give me an opportunity, which they did. And I was able to do almost like an individual OCI process because I went through a bunch of interviews pre-OCI. So I was already doing interviews in May and June. So very early, and I didn't decide till like July, but everything was pre-OCI that I did in regards to Big Law.
I wanted to make sure you said that. So Leah, what did you do?
This past summer, I worked at a Kenyan NGO. It was a socio and economics right focused NGO that also did a lot of humanitarian work, just sort of whatever came through the door. It was in Kenya. Obviously, I was unable to go. There was a double travel ban. They didn't want me, the US didn't want me to leave. It was a whole thing. So I tried to sneak out. I was like, maybe I can. And they were like, I got in trouble. But not the point. It was a really cool, really interesting experience. I really liked it. I'm Kenyan American. I think brain drain is a huge issue. I think we should always get back whenever we can. I definitely came into law school with I knew I was going to do corporate law. And so I had kind of a weird OCI sort of thing. So I did have pre-OCI offers because I took this job instead of taking a 1L summer at a firm. And so it gave me the offer anyway, out of good faith, which is appreciated. But I'm like terrible, and I wanted to do OCI, or it's EIW. NYU does. I'm talking too fast. Sorry. NYU does EIW for big law, and then OCI for public interest and mid-sized firms. So I did EIW. So I'm like holding two offers right now: a B10 offer and then a B20 offer. I'm pretty sure I want to do cross-border mergers and acquisitions. But I did a bunch of data privacy stuff this summer. I'm also very interested in data privacy and tech law. So I plan on just taking the summer to figure it out and taking this week to figure out where I'm going to work. But definitely big law, I'm just choosing.
That's so That's funny because you guys have been watching my channel before. Leah, that's not what you wanted to do when you came to law school. So can you talk about that? Like what happened during 1L that made you change your mind? Because you definitely wanted to do international law. Like that was...
Well, international law is like super depressing. Like that stuff is like, pause really fast. It's so depressing. Oh my God. It's insanely depressing. You'll work for like 3 years on something and then like you'll finish it. And then since states are sovereign bodies, will just say, no, we don't have to give people rights if we don't want to. Like it's extremely futile. It's extremely sad. I definitely wanted to do international law. I think I was interested in mostly doing litigation at first, and then I found out I don't like litigation. So that was sort of the major changer one. Like, not really what I want to do, but then two, very much not a litigation person. Really like corporate attorneys I've talked to. I think the workflow personally works a lot better for me. I like to finish things. I get a lot of serotonin from like ending a project, and litigation just never ends. Litigators know it can be 5 years, gets appealed. It's not even your project anymore. It gets sent to the appellate litigators for 3 more years. Just not my thing. So I definitely changed my mind based on talking to people, based on our lawyering. We call it lawyering, but you guys call it legal research and writing. Yeah, based on that class, we did a negotiation unit and then a litigation unit. I was definitely more into the negotiation unit. And as for the specific practice groups, it's mostly people I've met that I've liked. And then also I say I know, but obviously that could change. I didn't want to do code-based corporate work. That's like your bankruptcy, your restructuring, your tax, like that sort of thing. I definitely wanted to be on the other end. So that's where sort of M&A comes in. So yeah, I changed my mind. I may change my mind again. I may change my mind 6 more times, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. Sukhmeen, I don't think you said where you worked this summer, did you? Did you say it?
So I worked at the LA County Public Defender's Office this summer. Really enjoyed it. I kind of came in thinking I wanted to do public defense work, and I think after that experience, it's definitely like solidified that I really enjoy doing it.
Okay, so as far as studying, let's go back to that. I guess let's just go like, I have specific questions, so we'll do like short answers to these quick questions. So I guess Leah, we'll start with you. Did you study alone or with others?
I started studying alone, and then during reading week, our week with no classes before finals, I spent like 12 hours a day in groups with other people.
Okay, and you think that was helpful? You think the groups was definitely beneficial?
Yes and no. Actually, I got strong opinions about this. I think the group is beneficial when it's like a very aggressive, very focused group. I do think you can get into groups and then waste a lot of time in a way that's not helpful. Like, I don't super think it's helpful to just go over exams in a group, but you can kind of do that on your own and probably do a better job on your own, unless it's an exam with no answers, then definitely getting groups. We had a couple of those. Obviously, a group is necessary in that situation, but if you have the answers, I don't think going over them in a group is very helpful. I do think a group is very helpful for one, like accountability Zooms, love those. Like, they're really helpful, but two, when you're really deep diving into the material, when you're sort of quizzing each other, when you're sharing resources, I think that's when it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful when you're just trying to like talk things out. In reading week, I had some other study groups where we'd get together like once a week during the school year and sort of chat and ask like big questions, and sort of that was sort of our like chit-chatty sort of study group, and that was definitely helpful, mostly for keeping me on track. But yeah, I think it depends on your personality type, and I think it definitely depends on the group.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both. When I started, I guess my first semester, I tried to hang on to a group, but then I realized I studied better alone till like everyone else reading week and during finals. And someone showed like I had multiple groups almost, but one I felt more like a teacher than a student. But looking back, I was told by, I think it was a professor, they're like, if you know it and learn it yourself, you're all right. But if you can teach it, you have a real grasp on the material. So looking back, what I was doing during those sessions, during finals, it was really reinforcing what I thought I knew and realizing that it was solidified. So I would say a little bit of both, but mainly I utilized those groups during finals week.
Yeah, same with Richard. For the most part, I prefer to study alone. I feel like whenever I'm in a group, we just end up wasting too much time, and especially 1L year, it's just time something you don't have. And so if I had questions, I had one group that met weekly at a scheduled time, and we had the bulk of our classes together. And so we would run questions off of each other, but kind of limit it to that, not like give an overview. I prefer to go to office hours too, and just because they're the people who really matter, and like the professors are going to tell you exactly what they want to hear on the exam. And so it's just, I thought it was more efficient to go straight to the source. But then during finals, it was nice, like Leah was saying, to like bounce answers off of each other from like some sample questions if it didn't have an answer on it, and just kind of get people or get each other thinking about like what you could have, how you could have seen the question differently, and like what else you could have added. I will say if you're going to do a study group, keep it small, because the bigger it gets, one, it's harder to organize people. Two, you're going to end up chatting and not like actually studying. And then three, it's just going to be like less efficient, especially in person, I feel like.
Okay, Sukhmeen, do you want to talk about like studying alone or with others, what you did?
Oh, in terms of studying, just most of the semester just studying individually, but towards the end, review week is when we started to study more as a group. Even if it was just an accountability Zoom where we're studying individually, but we're just kind of on the same Zoom together. I think it was so helpful for me because I kind of needed that, especially with Zoom and just being in my room. I needed like that accountability, so that was helpful. But yeah, so it was a good balance between individual studying and group studying for me, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So Sukhmeen and I were in the same group, so we studied together, Zoom accountability. Even if we weren't studying the same thing, just knowing that somebody was on the other line, like holding me accountable, it just worked out way better. In terms of like studying alone, I don't know. I can study alone, but not really. I feel like I need somebody to keep me accountable because I was just so bored. Like like everything was so boring to me. Like there was literally not one subject that I was interested in. So I think it was just hard for me to study. It was very hard. So I would suggest like having somebody to keep you accountable, even if it's not, they could be in a different section, just somebody that's like there. Like, are you studying? Are you studying? Like, I feel like you should definitely have like one person at least. But okay, so next question. Did you guys actually brief cases? And then how did you brief cases? I've had like a lot of people reach out and say like, how do I brief a case? And I'm like, if I'm being honest, I only brief cases for maybe like the first 3 weeks of classes. And then I start briefing cases. So Kristen, let's start with you.
Yeah, I briefed the cases first semester. I had like contract and torts, and I was briefing every single case. And especially in torts, our casebook was like just a bunch of mini excerpts from the opinion, so it wasn't even full opinions. I felt it was good because it helped me figure out what to look for, and so by the end of the semester, I kind of was able to like skip around in the opinion and be like, oh, this word generally implies that like this is the holding, so let me just skip right to that, and then we'll go back and learn everything. Right now, definitely don't brief cases. It's just because for me, I was very focused on like the structure of how the opinion was written and not actually what it was saying. And so I would get cold called and they would ask me like, well, what does this mean referring back to this old case? I'm like, well, I don't know, like, because I don't actually know what it says. Like, I just know that it was in XYZ court. And so right now I have just been doing like bullet points of like main points of the case. It's working, but I also haven't been tested on it. So that's again what I was saying, like it's all trial and error. Yeah, so I think there's benefits to doing a case brief, especially in the beginning, but if you find out that that's not working for you and you're not like getting the gist of the case, just drop it. Don't be afraid to not brief or brief differently.
Right. Richard?
Yeah, I guess it just depends on, for myself, what it depended on, because if I were to be called or if I knew I had to brief, for example, obviously the preparation going into that is going to be different because the substantive questions I'll be asked on it. But in regards to looking back and going through for exam purposes, I mean, if I'm being honest, there's so many people who have already briefed that already, that's readily available online. I can think through it and look through theirs or an outline, etc., that I didn't need it for that purpose. But definitely my first semester, I was briefing all the time. Some cases more than others. Some classes more than others. My professors had their own way of how they would want us to brief in both semesters. And some professors, I was like, I'm definitely not doing that. You're talking about 9 or 10 different things there. That's not going to work for me. So I didn't do it. And then others had like a more concrete, succinct way of how to brief a case. I was like, okay, I can get with that because it gets right to the point, and I saw how they framed it in the structure. So I just went off of the templates that were available to me. And you know, in regards to con law, I wouldn't brief a con law case like I would brief a crim law case. So it varied by the class how I would brief it. I would say that.
Okay. Leia.
Yeah, sort of going off what Richard said, I 100% agree. I think a brief is great when you're on call. Like, you need a brief when you're on call because that's how you answer a question when you're on call in the style of a brief. But for exams, it's like not helpful at all. Like, it can be helpful to do a case bank where you just have like a couple lines of like the issue or like the result. What is that called? I don't know. Yeah, the result of whatever for each case can be really helpful if there's like a very specific question. But otherwise, you're not really going to use your briefs. I also, like most people, briefed 1L year, and I did bad in 1L. Well, not bad. I did worse in the first semester of 1L than the second semester of 1L. What I found to be much more helpful was to identify what my professor wanted from us reading the case. Like, you're always reading the case for a reason, right? So I would give myself like a little line of the facts to remember, the issue, and then the holding, and then what I thought the professor wanted me to get from this. And then I actually would I started printing them out, but then I bought an iPad. So then I started writing on my iPad, like what the professor wanted us to get from that in like the bottom. And then I would put that back in what I was typing. So much more helpful. So much more useful for exam season, so much useful for outlining. And ultimately, like Richard said, the Quippy has a brief if you're on call. You should read the case, fill it in a little bit, but it's not as helpful as you think it is, especially once you learn how to read.
Yeah. Sukhmeen.
Yeah, 100% agree with what Leia said in terms of understanding the reason that you're reading the case is so much more important than the tiny details you won't really need for the exam. So I did start off with really detailed briefs and it would take me forever just because I thought that's what I was supposed to do first semester. And then by second semester, I was quimbing a lot more, and I also just kind of like figured out how to read cases faster because you start recognizing like where the holding's at and all the different like structures of the cases. So I was definitely briefing cases faster. So I did continue briefing, but I wasn't taking a long time on them. I was just trying to make sure I understood the case and I understood why we were reading it, and didn't try to spend too much time like making sure my notes were perfect about it.
Right, yeah. So you guys mentioned a few like supplements. So I use Quimby myself. I use Barbary. I use Sukhmeen's like book supplements that she had because I didn't buy them. Did you guys use like any other supplements besides Quimby, Barbary? Did you guys use any specific things you would recommend? If you did,
I used an E&E for contracts. I think in classes where a problem set makes sense, they can be super helpful. I don't think they're helpful for things like CivPro or anything like that, but for something like contracts reports, and I found an E&E to be helpful.
Okay.
Which is an example and explanations book if you don't know. And there's one that goes with your book. It's like a little bit expensive, but I find that it was worth it.
Yeah, I use E&E for contracts and con law. I use West Academic is something my school offered, and West Academic was real clutch when I would listen to the audio tapes and books. If I was ever driving on a road trip during like, Thanksgiving break, I couldn't tell you. I was just driving and it was like I would go to bed just hearing the professor, and even Barbary as well, Freer. Like I just heard their voices. Like I would go to bed, I'm like, damn, why I hear them talking? Like, but it's because I would just have them playing over and over. I would start working out, just listening to it before finals. So like it just makes sense to me. The audio tapes, I'm that type of learner sometimes to put it together. Whatever's like not clicking on a particular subject, you can find and go through the audio tapes, just particular portions where it's on a subject area. And I think that's the best part about it, where if something's ever not clicking in class or on that subject that you're struggling on, that might be something that'll help too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the E&Es. I use them for every class, except con law. There's like professors, a lot of them on their syllabus, they'll like recommend a supplement. And if they do that, stick to that, because that's probably going to be where like a lot of the information is going to come from. But the E&Es, I really liked it, especially like for property. It gives you kind of like a zoomed out view. I felt like my problem with a lot of the classes I took, it was so focused on the details, I lost track of like why this is important in the first place. And so E&Es like do a great job of like zooming out, and then again, just having that constant practice, try to do like, I did the practice problems and the E&Es, I did the odd ones while I was reading that material, and then all the even ones when it came time to finals. And so then it's like, okay, well, it's not too hard. It's just like 5 questions instead of 10 questions. So it makes it feel a little bit easier. And then it makes it so you have something to review later down the line. And then, I did the Barbary videos. I didn't pay too much attention to those. I would kind of like block them out while I was listening to them, or like zone out. But they're definitely useful to just have that like reinforcement.
Yeah, definitely.
I lied. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about one supplement that I really like. There's these set of books called the Acing series, and they're only useful once you finish the class. Like that is the only time in which they're useful. But it's sort of a if this then that type of outline book, which can really help you write a better exam. They have them for most things. I think I found that they were most useful for like common law and contracts. Again, those things that like, a system really makes sense with them. And it would be like, if you come to this, then you should definitely talk about this also, which is sort of something that you have to do quickly during an exam and will get you more points. So the Acing series, also like those.
Okay, and I'm assuming that like when you guys prepare for cold calls, like did most of you like rely on your reading, but then Quimby? Because that's what I did with Quimby. Okay.
Be careful with Quimby. I got called out. So in my contracts class, everyone here, I'm guessing, has read the Harry Hand case. Quimby goes into a lot more detail. We got, like, he edited the opinion himself. And so then when he cold called me, this was like the second or third class, he asked me for the facts, and I started going into so much detail because Quimby had like all this detail about like where they attached the hand to and like where they got the skin from. And he was like, so that's great that you read Quimby, did you actually read the material that I provided? And I was like,
okay.
So I mean, like, if the professor is going to be that particular about something, oh well, but I will say, like, be careful.
No, that does make Quimby, but I have a similar caution, not in a call out sort of way. But when me and Sukhmeen were saying earlier, like, why does your professor want you to read the case? Becomes very important because Quimby can be, reading a certain case with the intention of, oh, you're supposed to understand this part of the topic, but the case can also be about a separate legal topic as well. And Quimby is not talking about this legal topic, and you can get into a lot of trouble. For me, it was I didn't get in trouble, somebody else did, but I watched. It was like that Lady Duff Gordon case in contracts. Like, is it supposed, like, there's 2 major elements about contracts in that case, and Quimby only addresses one of them and not the other.
Yeah, that does make sense. A lot of times your professors will actually say, like, don't read anything else but what I'm giving you. Like, sometimes they will say that. So if they tell you that, then like make sure you only read, because sometimes they will provide you like a shortened version of cases because they don't want to spend too much time talking about things they don't really want to, discuss or whatever. So that does happen. Yes, Kristen, so I guess with that though, how did you guys take notes in class? Like, did you take notes a certain way while you were reading and then different in class? Did you write? Did you use Notability? I know for myself, I wrote all my notes last year. This year, I did start typing my notes, and I love it way better. I don't know why. Like, I felt like I couldn't type and be on Zoom for some reason. And now that I'm in person, I'm like, oh, I can type my notes. So I don't know. What did you guys do last year? I guess Kristen, we'll start with you.
So last year I typed my notes, and it's actually funny. I did the total opposite. I typed last year, and now I'm just doing handwritten, or I have GoodNotes on my iPad. But yeah, my problem with typing notes, I try to type everything that they say. And so I end up like transcribing. And then like with the PowerPoints, I'll try to type everything that's on the PowerPoint. And then it's like, I'm not really absorbing what they're saying. And so when I'm handwriting, I know that I can't write down everything that's going to be on the slide and what they're saying. And so it just forces me to think like, okay, this is what they're saying, but what are they actually trying to get across? Like, what's the overall theme? And that's helped me a lot, especially if they post the slides online. I know some professors don't, which makes it really hard because then you kind of have to choose, like, am I going to look at the slides or am I going to look at this? Yeah. And then, yeah.
something different while you were reading? Like, when you do your reading, do you type your notes, write your notes? Do you take notes while you're reading?
I'm still trying to figure that out right now. This semester, I'm trying to move more into handwriting. With reading, that takes a lot longer. But so far, it's been good. I might change back over to typing, and then just try to really like restrain myself on how much I like type down.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We have the opposite, like you said, the issue though, because I write faster than I type. Like I can write. It's crazy, but my nails, I don't remember how to type properly. I used to know, somehow I forgot along the years. And so like I type slower. So it actually makes me like pay attention more. So it's like backwards, but everybody's different though. So yeah. Richard, how about you?
I definitely, well, first of all, my first love is OneNote on Microsoft Office. It saved my life. The way I organized it, I was like, I didn't look back. So that's my main answer. I'm looking into, since I start class tomorrow, I was looking into, because I had that issue as well. I didn't know, because it was on Zoom, and I'm not gonna lie, I got lazy sometimes. Screenshot the PowerPoint, and then I just paste it on the OneNote, and I'm like, don't gotta type out the PowerPoint even if they don't send it to us. But some of my professors sent it to me, so I just listened and looked at it and took like what I got away from class. But I mainly type. I'm looking at how handwriting goes for me this year, since I'll be in person. But RIP Zoom School of Law. But to me, I think handwriting, I've heard like you process it more because you're having to really go through instead of like just doing a transcript of what was said in class when you type, according to people who are older that I've spoken to. So I'm trying to see how that works out for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I feel like, do I feel like I retain more? I don't know. Maybe just 1L is just not a good example for me at all.
I mean, if it works, it works. I feel like that's kind of something someone touched on earlier. Or I guess you just got to focus on yourself, on your own note-taking style.
Yeah, because I feel like typing is working better for me. I don't know. Maybe when I write, maybe I write so fast that I don't know. I feel like it's working, but like we said, we haven't taken exams yet for 2L, so we don't know. We have no idea what's going to work for us. Leah, how did you take your notes?
I switched it up from 1L to 2L, and I had such a good, not 1L to 2L, sorry. First semester, 1L year to second semester, 1L year. I had such a good second semester. I cannot emphasize enough how much I needed to change things around. But I'm a person who needs like systems and processes. So for 1L semester, I did what everybody did. I like briefed and then I outlined and like that was it. Second semester, which is what I'm doing this semester too, is it's sort of what I alluded to earlier. I read first. I read on my iPad. I do everything in GoodNotes. Love GoodNotes. So I like download the reading onto my iPad, and I have like all digital books that I definitely paid for. And I like highlight and read just reading, and then I go back and I type up like my actual like reading notes, and then I take that to class and I write on it. Write what like the professor says. If he emphasizes anything, if he doesn't talk about something, get rid of that as well, because they do not want to read that on their exam. And so then I take that and that's my actual notes, and that worked so well for me. I do think writing, I'm on side writing. I do think it's better for remembering. Like something about the physical aspect is really great, but I do a kind of a combo. So it just depends on you and what you like. But also, you may need to change it up from undergrad. Like I came almost straight through from undergrad. And the way I studied undergrad is not the way I studied in law school. Did really well in undergrad. Still not how I can study for law school. So just be prepared to switch it up.
No, that makes sense. And I think it's also a difference between like actually writing on a piece of paper and then writing on your iPad. I think that's a difference too. Like I've never wrote on an iPad, I don't think. So maybe I should try that. Now I need to go buy like an Apple Pencil. Now I have ideas for myself. Cause like, I feel like-
I love my Apple Pencil. It's so great.
Yeah, like maybe I should
say, you should get they have screen protectors for the iPads that makes it
I've got that too.
Write it on paper.
Oh, really? Okay. And I know there's like another thing, like just to give you guys a suggestion, like Rocketbook. Like you write and then you can like scan it and it puts it on like it puts it onto your computer. So it's like you write it, but then it puts it onto like a piece of paper for you. It's called Rocketbook. So. Oh,
I've seen that. I also do want to say OneNote is amazing for outlines. If you got a pre-made outline, it's really fantastic.
Yep. Okay. Sukhmeen, what about you?
So 1L, I typed my notes, but I think in terms of retaining information, I'm much better with writing. I think with Zoom and also like 1L, I was just thinking that everything was going to be so overwhelming. So I needed to, type fast and make sure I'm like getting all the information into my notes. But looking back, I feel like I was doing the same thing, like as was said earlier. I was kind of just transcribing. So I think if that's something that you do when you type, like maybe just, make sure that's not what you're doing. But I will say the benefit of typing my notes, I do organize them a lot better. Like I can actually highlight certain things faster and, organize them in a way where it's easier to read later. And then I also love Control F, like for exams, that helped a lot, for Zoom at least. But I think for lectures, I'm going to start writing my notes. And then when I'm reading, probably just type.
Yeah, and I think I also should note that it's more so I also like typing my notes because I know I'm lazy. And I think last year I literally said, oh, I'm going to write all my notes and I'm going to type them up on Friday. That never happened. Well, let me not say never. It happened like maybe 3 or 4 times the entire time. And so I know for me, just like Sukhmeen said, if I type it, it's easier for me to go back and read it. It's easier for me to keep it organized. Like me actually writing and then saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to just type them up so I can make my outline. That didn't happen for long. So I feel like it's more so like you just have to know like what you're actually going to do. Like I know myself. I'm not going to go back and type anything up on Friday. It's just not going to happen. So yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think if I have other questions about that. Do you guys have just like a general overall study tip you want to give? And then I just have like general questions about like just getting through 1L in terms of like mental health. But do you have any like last minute like general study tips or no? If not,
I guess my only one would be that was really the most beneficial for myself. And I think Kristen touched on this, which was the professor is the person administering and delivering the exam. So at the end of the day, they know the most. And now, albeit I went through a different type of, we all did, I guess, because of Zoom. So there was only virtual office hours. So it wasn't like I was stalking the professor outside, and I wasn't, everyone, there's some kids who, they're going to be on top of the professor and go to every single office hours. I'm not into like transactional relationships. So I like substance. So I wasn't there just to be there. Like I had legitimate questions, but whenever I had them, if I didn't want to put the office hours, I'll email them the question, as I'm reading so I can get it answered. Most professors are, now some professors tell you outright that they're not that type of professor, but if they seem like they are and they're accessible, I asked them every question I had, like outside of class. And the most important thing is all these other supplements are great, but no supplement tops, what a professor has administered in the past and what they're looking for. So I think that's the biggest key. Yes, there's a bar at the end of the tunnel that we ought to take, and we learned that from the foundation. But the biggest study tip is if you're worried about grades, which is what we're worried about that first year, the person who holds the key is the professor.
Yeah, so like look at their old exams for sure. Like that's your biggest thing. Like looking at their old exams and then asking them questions. Like if you don't understand like an answer from the exam, go to office hours and say like, hey, I read the exam, but I don't get this. So that'll help for sure. But,
my old school didn't have that. Like my professor didn't have old exams like my new school does. Now I'm looking at a bank and they have like just exams laying around. Mine, you had to go to the professor, and half the professors didn't have them available. So if you go to a school, I'm just speaking to whoever might watch this that went to a school like mine where we didn't have that accessibility, go to the professor and give them like something you found on Quimby or Barbary, like practice essays and see if this is something they would do that is quality work. Like if you have to go that extra length, then I recommend it do so.
Right. Kristen, were you going to say something? Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. So let's move on. Let's just talk about like general 1L, not specific to studying grades, anything like that. But I guess just overall, did you have free time? I have like 3 or 4 more questions. Did you have free time? And if so, how? If not, why not? Because I feel like that's like a big question for 1Ls. They want to like be able to allocate their time. So Kristen, we'll start with you.
So I had free time, not very much, but like I worked 2 jobs all through college. Like I'm used to not having free time. I will say it was kind of weird. Again, just the focusing on yourself. I came and I like divvying up my free time. So I have like a ton of 10 or 15 minute little time slots. Like I'll read a chapter, than just literally walk around my apartment, like just watching like a video or something. But a lot of people here in the building I'm in that were also in my class, we moved to this building together, they were kind of more like, you wake up at 6, you don't stop working until like 8, and then you go party hard once a week. And so it's just like that worked for them. That didn't work for me. I tried doing it, but I just got so stressed out. And so I was in downtown LA first semester, but then I was like, I can't do this. It's too loud here. We're not going to be on campus anyways. I'm going to move back home for spring semester. I did that. And then I realized how important it is to kind of spend a good part of your free time, if not all, with like non-law students. Because it's just like, I don't want to talk about class. Like, it's one thing if you have questions or if you're really feeling like a certain way, you need to like vent to someone, you need to go see somebody, like that's something. But if you're just trying to have a good time and like people keep bringing up school, for me, like I can't do that. Like I need to be around people who do not care like what my reading was about. And then like my family and friends, like they're not in law school. And so they're exactly those people. And so I would say like even during the write-on, I would tell my mom like, oh, I'm doing the write-on right now. And she was like, what is that? And I was like, it's for the journals. And she was like, what are those? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like this isn't so important. It's not so extreme. And so, yeah, I would just say figure out how you like to spend your free time, because you will have some, and how you want to use it like is really important. And then maybe spend it with people who either don't talk about law school when you don't want to talk about law school, or just aren't in law school.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up with that. I want we can just do both of these together for everyone. So then how did you set boundaries with people outside of law school and inside of law school? Because I feel like boundaries is a big thing. So.
Yeah, it's really big. I think just being honest with people, like, hey, look, I'm really here for you if you want to talk about this, but if it's just kind of chit chat, I would honestly rather talk about something else, like, or maybe just doing activities that like don't involve so much just chatting, like maybe going like to the gym with somebody, or like doing something active where that opportunity doesn't really come up as much as if you're like at a party or like at a bar or something.
Richard.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer the first question in regards to, wait, what was the first question? I'm sorry.
First question was just like if you had free time, and if you didn't,
why? Not.
Yeah,
no, I didn't have free time. But that's because because of the year I had, like I already spoke about what I knew I was going into, the grades I felt like I needed to have. So I was actually in this area, my gap year, and I spoke to a professor who was a professor at one of the schools. He wasn't Georgetown, but another school. And he worked on the Hill, and he told me, well, you only had 5 times throughout your first year to go out, your birthday. He said something else, like one social setting you pick, and then the Christmas and fall break, and then one other thing in the summer, or during like reading week. And I was like, so I went into school with that mentality where it's like, I can't or see like sunlight. So I literally would lock in for like 10 to 12 hours every day, like the first month. And I was like, this is kind of not sustainable. So my mental health was definitely, we'll get in that, but it was a little deteriorating. So hence why that I kind of crashed and burned that second semester, because I couldn't sustain that level. But obviously, if you are one of those people who feels like I need to get that A, that's what worked for me. I don't recommend it for anyone else. So no, I didn't have time really, but I had time management and the discipline because of, always like Christian mentioned, I was always involved. I played sports. I'm involved still now in law school, which is kind of toxic, but I still am. I can't help myself. So like literally my first semester, I was like mock trial director for the Southern region of Black Law Student Association. So it's like I'm always involved. But being able to allocate time, to answer your second question, has to do, I think, with the intersection of boundaries. If you set a time for something, give your all and pour 100% into what you said you're going to put time into. So if for me, my schedule would be, if I'm done studying and I said, okay, I'm going to talk to my mama from this time to this time for 30 minutes, I'm only going to worry about my mother right there. I'm not going to worry about class. I'm not going to worry about, what I have to do for my organization, what I have to do, what am I cooking for dinner. I'm going to allocate that time and be 100% into that. But other advice I also got was the law is a jealous mistress. So the more time you spend away from her, the more, maybe you'll do poorly. So if you said you're going to study, you got to study and read. Don't like doze off or half off like the study and reading you're doing. So just pour in and give 100% effort into what you said you're going to do in your schedule. Give that hour that you're going to talk to someone, or 30 minutes, whatever you're doing, for what you said you were going to do, and you should be fine. So I think time management is crucial. And for the boundaries, at least the people in my life know, I tell them, like, they know when the semester's approaching, like they saw I transferred, I made my post, and everyone's like, well, we're not going to hear from Richard no more, like as a joke. But it's true. Like they know I lock in how I was last year. I told them it wouldn't be as extreme this time around because I don't have that pressure no more. But still, when it comes to school, they know I'm not, we just don't play about that. And like, if it's not important, I'm here for you, like Kristen said. But if it's not really important, maybe you can keep that in the drafts.
Yep. Leah?
I have sort of a mixed point of view. I definitely was very serious, but I did one nice thing for myself a week. Like that was my sort of line, and I was going to make sure I did that no matter what. I think I agree with most of what everybody else has said. So to add something new to the conversation, I would say the lazier I got, the less free time I had. It was very oxymoronic, because you would think like, oh, I'm going to relax like now, but no, that's like such wasted time. Like when you are wasting time, but you spend that entire time thinking about the work you have to do, it doesn't feel like free time, and it contributes to your burnout. Like if you have like a week where, but the opposite is also true. If you have a week where all you do is school from like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., you're going to burn out at the end of probably 2 weeks and spend a full day, maybe 2 days, maybe a week not doing what you're supposed to be doing, because you're going to feel burned out and you're going to feel like, oh, I did so much. So really setting boundaries with myself was incredibly important. In undergrad, I used to do this thing that I do now. Once COVID sort of relaxed in New York, I got vaccinated in January. I was very early. I started doing this immediately after that, was I would trap myself somewhere. Like I would take like 2 trains and a bus to somewhere like 15 miles away. So I had to like do work. Like I couldn't just go home. But I would always do this thing where I'd be like after like 2 hours, I'd be like, I could do this at home. I will not do it at home. That is an absolute lie. Oh my God, as soon as I get home, I'm going to do something else. So I would trap myself somewhere. I do that now. It sounds a little toxic, but I promise it works really well for me. And additionally, I took this productivity course a while ago, but the best advice I got from it was every time you give into distraction, you waste like approximately 22 minutes of refocusing. And I found that is 100% true. Like you getting up and like making yourself a meal, you're going to make the meal, you're going to watch a TV show or like a YouTube video while you watch the meal. And you're not going to turn the YouTube video off when you're done eating. You're going to finish watching it. And then you're going to go to the bathroom. And then you're going to wash your hands. And then you're going to come back and you're going to adjust your setup. And you're going to waste like a significant amount of time with the refocusing. So that's why I would trap myself. But you can, if you're a better person than I am, you can, close the door in your room, maybe lock it to remind yourself. And then every time before I would get up, I'd be like, can I waste like 20 minutes right now? And the answer would be no. And I wouldn't waste that time. It was really helpful for me. I know that sounds insane, but I have, I'm very weak-willed. So I have to really, control myself.
No, I'm laughing because I literally have on my schedule for today to study. But I was going to cook when we got done filming.
See, that's what happened. I'm telling you.
YouTube video while I cooked it. So I'm like, how do you know my life? Like, how do you know?
Because it's just what happens. It's what happens. And you'll waste. And that like 20 minutes doesn't sound like a lot. But if you do like 20 minutes twice a day and that's a whole week, like that's a reading assignment. And you could then be using that time to do one nice thing for yourself. I go rock climbing sometimes. It's fun.
No, it does make sense. And I also feel like I feel better about doing other things when I know I've actually allocated like a real amount of time to studying. Like if I study from like 9 to 5 one day, at 5:30, I'm like, oh, I really can do whatever I want right now. I feel better. Like, I don't know. I just feel better about the day in general and about the week. So I feel like
your free time feels free. Like it does not feel free when you have stuff to do.
Exactly. Like if you really just lock in and like do what you need to do, you actually would have more free time because like you really would. It sounds bad, but if you just actually allocate real time and do what you say you're going to do, you would have more free time. But I guess that's something you have to figure out throughout 1L, what works for you. So Sukhmeen, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I think one thing I needed that was really hard to get during 1L in terms of boundaries was I needed a separate space between like work and rest. And it was so hard to do over Zoom, but thankfully I was in like our university apartment. So we did have study rooms on campus that I could go to. That helped a lot. And now, of course, like now since 1Ls are starting in person, you know, try to separate the space between where you relax and where you work, because it does not work out. I was way too kind to myself, which is fine looking back on it. Like we were in a pandemic. Like I feel okay that I was being overly kind to myself during that time, because it was also 1L, it was a hard year. But I think in terms of productivity, I could have done better if I did work more outside of my room. Because yeah, if I wanted to rest, I was like, okay, my bed's right there, I'm gonna go rest. But I think moving forward, like even now today, I was telling Lataysia, like I'm gonna go to a coffee shop and study because I cannot study in here. So yeah, I think having physical boundaries is really important.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess last question, and then the last one is just very open-ended. So like last like real question. So is there anything that you did differently through 1L for your mental health that you didn't do before, that you didn't even think that you needed before? Like I know for me, I feel like I actually started like journaling a little bit. Like I needed to like write down my thought process and like all the emotions I was feeling throughout the day for 1L. So I know that's like something that I did differently, but I don't know, do you guys have anything else that you did differently? Anything that you wish you would have did during 1L to help your mental health? Kristen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so during undergrad, I just really like working out. And during undergrad, I would go to the gym and just work out like on my own, and that worked for me. But from being at home so much and just being in 1L, there's a lot going on. It's a very stressful environment. I felt that when I was going to the gym or during COVID, like just trying to go on a run or something on my own, I just was letting these thoughts kind of get in my head. And so it wasn't like a productive use of my time because I wasn't like really focusing on my workout. And so I started taking like classes. Like I took a spin class in my hometown, and it was just really nice to kind of have that coach figure keeping you grounded and keeping you there. And I looked into some boutiques around downtown, and they're just a little pricey. And so I ended up getting a Peloton, and I really like it. I think that like just exercise it really goes hand in hand with my own mental health. And I know like a lot of schools have like free access to counselors. And then I feel like that's becoming like more accessible through like BetterHelp, Calm, like things like that. So I think that's really important too, if people want to like go talk to someone, just kind of vent things out, figure out kind of how they're feeling and get more in touch with their feelings. It's especially in a very stressful time like this, just 1L. And as we're kind of still in the transitional period out of COVID, like it's just so important to be in touch with how you feel. So yeah, I would say doing that and then doing like the structured classes was new for me, but it has been so helpful.
Right. Okay. Richard.
Yeah, for myself, well, one, I wish I did what Leah did in regards to treating myself once a week. That would have been nice. So I might take that into account, or I probably will for 2L, do something for myself. I think that'll be beneficial. What I did do that I definitely didn't do before law school, Kristen actually touched on it. My school offered, they kind of blew it up and announced it, like having a counselor in-house for mental health and doing therapy. So I did that. And even after I left, I decided to find one of my own that I can relate to and speak to. So that's been huge. And I, being able to carry that throughout this whole transition for me, I think it's going to be great for my own mental health in regards to, talking about all the anxiety that comes with law school and stress, because I was a person, I worked out 4 or 5 times a week or more. And I spent my entire workout just wondering, am I going to be able to finish this reading on time? I always finish my reading, but I'm still always stressed if I'm actually get it done, even though I always get it done. It's kind of toxic. It's a cycle that I can't get out of. Hopefully I can this year, but it still happens. So, being able to get out of that is something I'm looking forward to as well.
Sukhmeen, we'll go with you next, and then Leah.
I would say in terms of mental health, one thing that's huge for me, one thing I really want to continue doing is like making sure I'm really honing in on who I am outside of law school. Like that could mean like hobbies, I love exploring LA. Like I love LA. I love going to the beach. I'm pretty nearby, so just doing things I like to do. I love to roller skate. I love to take pictures. I love photography, stuff like that. Like completely like separating myself from law school at least during some part of my week, so that because then I'll start feeling like I'm not a human being, I'm a robot. So I think that's been huge for me. So I think I'm going to try to continue doing that. I haven't been doing that this week because it was so overwhelming, but I'm going to go into next week, like take a day to do something not law related.
Okay, Leia.
Yeah, I got a 10 out of 10 recommend therapy. I had a therapist during undergrad. Just I'd see her once a week. We'd chat. She was great. Loved her. So one all year, I was like, okay, you've moved on from therapy for my first semester. And that's not how that works at all. So my second semester, I got counseling again. Also, if you've never had counseling before, if you're worried about it, a lot of times you can get it from your school for free. You can just sort of test it out, see if you like it, and then see if you can get a therapist that's more relatable to you. I see a Black woman therapist. It's really great for me personally. But whatever works for you is really great. But it's a good way to test it out. It's stigma-free. Nobody will know about it. If you're worried about that, it's amazing. But additionally, I think adults don't have hobbies enough. And having a hobby is so good for your mental health. It really is. Even if your hobby is working out, I got a desk treadmill that has an incline, and it's amazing. Sometimes I'll just walk during class. I'm like, I'm so stressed out, or I'm bored and I want to run around. Well, now I've added an element that makes me less bored. Or just, something. You have to have a hobby. It will make your life better, even if it's, yeah.
No, I agree. That makes sense. So last comment, question, thought in general, I guess just like, so I know Leia hasn't started classes yet for 2L. Richard hasn't started yet. He starts tomorrow. Leia starts in like a week or two. But I know Kristen, Sukhmeen, and I have all started. And so I guess like in general, we started, but we only started a week ago. So like, what is something that you're really looking forward to for 2L that you're like, 1L did not give me this at all, but 2L needs to give me this? I guess for myself, I don't want to be bored. Like literally, I was so bored 1L. So like I'm taking classes this semester, this year, and throughout law school from this point on that actually interest me. Like I'm going to take some bar classes, but I'm not taking mostly bar classes. I'm taking things that interest me because law school is just dreadful and I need it to be fun in some way. So that's my thing. I don't know. Kristen, how about you?
Yeah, definitely taking classes I'm interested in. And then, so 2L, I feel like there's this like notion that it's easier. And in this week so far, you're just as busy. It's just with different things. So I'm on the board of our first gen program and our Latinx Student Association, and that takes up a lot of time. And so I'm just as busy as I was 1L year, but it's things that I enjoy more. And so I'm really looking forward to getting involved with those programs, connecting our students with certain alumni, and just being able to like give back to the school in that way and just give back to the 1Ls this year. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. And I guess to add on to that, because I do get this question too, and just like to add on, I know a lot of people are like, what activities should you involve yourself in during 1L? I would say most things your 1L year are going to be like low commitment. If you're just like a 1L rep, it's usually low commitment. But I still wouldn't suggest like just joining 10 things just to have them on your resume. Like join things that actually interest you, join things you'll actually be dedicated to and actually go to meetings. Like just join things that actually interest you 1L. And go like try a few different meetings. Like I went to like a lot of different things at the beginning just to see like what orgs I wanted to join, and then I kind of narrowed it down by 2L. So yeah.
If I could kind of tag on to that, yeah, focus 1L on things you're interested in outside of the classroom. So with the organizations, don't just do it because it's a resume boost, because everyone's doing that. And so, yeah, like you might get that first screener interview because you have that thing on your resume that they're looking for. But then it's like when they say, tell me about it, you're going to sound like a super dull whatever. But if you put things and are involved with things that you actually really like, it's just going to be so much more clear to them that that's who you are. And it's going to help you find a better match for somewhere where you want to work, because if that's important to them and they want to know about that aspect of your life, it's somewhere that you can kind of see yourself more in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Richard?
Yeah, for myself, I'm looking forward to, like I mentioned before, the curriculum, but also being able to dive in a more balanced curriculum, I guess, and light and work-life balance as well. So I did the same in regard to my involvement. I dove right in, but I stayed in that same lane. I didn't really deviate because I knew what I wanted to do, and I'm able to do multiple things within the capacities that I've joined, the organization I joined, and then at the same time being able to take classes that have to do with what I'm going to work on next summer. I wasn't going to be able to do that before, and now that I'm able to, unlike 1L in 2L, I'm taking a couple of classes that have to do with the corporate or transactional work I might do next summer. But at the same time, retrospect, any public interest ideas that I've ever had or things that I cared about in advocacy, I'm able to do that with my other two classes in regards to like election law or things like race and capitalism. So it's like all my varied interests now I'm actually able to touch and really delve into. So I'm excited for that.
Right. Sukhmeen.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me that I'm looking forward to is the community building aspect that we totally missed out on during Zoom. Even just during the first week, we were out there tabling for our student org fair, and we were there all day in like the hot sun. It was exhausting, but it was so much fun to like meet all these 1Ls who are interested in, you know, participating in all these organizations. And it's all like-minded students, and you can really find your community and people that want to do similar work, or just like people that have similar interests. Even if you're not necessarily going on the same career path, it's just people that, you know, want to use their legal skills to, you know, help the community. And I think it's been cool to hear other people's ideas, what they want to do, how they want to incorporate their background into what they want to do, and then kind of bouncing off ideas and kind of seeing how you can incorporate that, like how I can incorporate that into my career too. So community building is a huge thing that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely. And Leia.
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of go back to Kristen. I think everyone's heard like the phrase 1L scares you to death, 2L works you to death, and 3L bores you to death. It is different work. That's very true. I'm just as busy already, if not busier, than I was my 1L year. But the work is very different and has very different stakes, which makes it feel less daunting, I guess the word is. Like I'm on a journal, and I'm on a journal with an hour's commitment. So it's like it's a lot of work that they're already having us do. We've been doing it all summer, which doesn't feel fair. I'm also toxically involved. I have to be in different organizations. They're already talking about like their end of the year events right now, but I'm mostly excited for my classes. Like everybody else, having choice has been really amazing. I'm so excited for my classes. I'm so excited for my professors. Being able to say like, no, I don't want that toxic professor has been really amazing in a way we were not allowed to do for 1L. So that's mostly it. I'm hoping, I don't think I'll have any extra free time. I think I've just got to give that up and, you know, stick to my once a week. I get to have a good time. But actually, no, I take that back because a lot of the organizations I'm involved with throw a lot of events. So I guess those are still events and those are still supposed to be fun. But you know, time just for me, which is a little bit different.
So thank you guys for answering all the questions. If you guys have like other questions for them, I'll put all the information down below. But yeah, thank you. Bye.